Thank you for joining us for our news episode of the Mile 99 interview. My name is Paulo Medina, and I am broadcasting from Auburn, California. And I am today at the 8th station. And today was the first day of our Thursday run. So it was a little bit complicated get a run and get back in time for the interview with my co-host, Greg Larkin. Greg, go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Paulo. I'm Greg Larkin. This is our seventh episode of the Mile 99 interview. And as some of our regulars know, this is our opportunity every week to sit down with a local ultra runner, talk to them, find out what makes them tick, kind of keep our community connected. But as you just heard, we're starting to get some runs going again. As things loosen up a little bit, hopefully we'll be exchanging some of that valuable information that we miss so much. But in the meantime, this is what we've been doing. Just trying to find out more about somebody that we may not know much about or we've heard about, but don't really know what makes them tick. And tonight we're really honored to have someone that I think has just made some incredible achievements in the world of ultra running, and that's Ray Sanchez. So welcome, Ray.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. I think it was Mike, our man Mike Turner here, who's monitoring Zoom questions for audience Q&A as well as our Facebook live stream. He's the one I think who proposed you, and he had come across some interesting information about you out on the internet. So we did some more research, and then we started finding out more and more about your career, and definitely wanted to talk to you. So glad you're making the time for us. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So just to clarify, Mike's going to be looking at our chat on Zoom here, and also looking at the comments and questions on Facebook. So if anybody has a question for Ray as we go through this, just make a note of it, send it on a comment, and Mike will keep an eye on it. And then at some point later on, we'll do some audience Q&A towards the end. So, all right, let's get started. So I don't know. Let's just jump right in. Badwater. Okay.
Yeah.
This guy, I mean, I don't know if people have read up on Ray or not, but you've done 12 consecutive Badwaters. I mean,
yes.
This is an incredible achievement. Anybody who doesn't know what Badwater is, do you want to explain a little bit about that race? And we can start there and just kind of go from there.
You start off in the lowest point in Badwater. That's right by Furnace Creek. Then you run all the way up to 135 miles, all the way up to the portal of Mount Whitney. Before you had I think 59 hours. Now they drop it down to 48 hours to finish that in. And you have your good days and bad days. All 13 times. I think I only had like two good times where I did really good, and other times I always had some hoops to go through.
So now you've finished it 12 times, is that right? Or 13?
Yeah, 12.
Okay. And
12.
you're going for
13. 13 would be in 2 weeks. I'm gonna try to accomplish it because I've had a shoulder surgery.
Oh.
So I haven't been running. I just started running like maybe 2 weeks ago.
Whoa. Okay. So, and they haven't canceled the race. And
no, they just got approved yesterday.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so can you kind of describe like the logistics of this race and why it might be a little easier for them to run this race versus maybe some other types of races right now?
Well, this one's been difficult for me. I love heat, but for some reason, I've been working on my nutrition. And hopefully this year, I think my nutrition is going to get me through the race, for not being in shape. So, I mean, you can easily, in like 5 miles, get dehydrated real quick. Like where I ran it one year, my first year I ran it the first 24 miles, I lost 12 pounds. And they were trying to take me out of the race, but I was so determined to keep going. And I sat out for 4 hours, tried to rehydrate it. I took off running thinking, I was good, but then my belly was shaking like a water jug. I could just hear it, like you shake a water jug, you could just hear it just slushing all back and forth. So I went back, I ate a little bit of bread and slept for like another 4 or 5 hours. And then I got up and I did amazing. I finally got lucky. I mean, I still finished the race in like 37 hours. You know, I sat out for like 9 hours.
Just incredible. Yeah. I mean, and that the heat, yeah. I mean, that's one of the huge factors of this race that I keep reading
Yeah.
from everybody is just that you're on pavement, right? For like how many miles?
You're all pavement. It's all pavement all the way through.
Yeah.
It's all just road. That's what's so hard. I don't like road, but you know, I like the trails easier on your knees and stuff, but it gets to you afterwards.
Yeah. Paulo, have you tried that one yet?
So, sorry, I have to apologize. I got a little bit of a bag noise here. It's a little bit noisy here in the store, so I was trying to use my cell phone as a backup for listening device, but I'm getting a little bit back of feedback. So Badwater has always been on my radar. Ever since I started running, Badwater really has been one of those races that attracts a lot of what I seek into this ultra running events, which is basically to strip me down to the core, to get, all right, what are you made out of? It's just like, can you accomplish this, right? The closest that I've come to something similar to Badwater 135 was Salton Sea. Um, and the Salton Sea, the Badwater Salton Sea is organized by the same race director, and it basically goes from the Salton Sea to the Palomar Mountain, and it is I'm sure Ray can correct me on this, but it is, I believe, 86 miles, if I remember
It's
correctly.
81 miles.
81 miles. That's right. It's and it's like the Salton Sea is mostly run on roads. It starts below sea level and finishes at Palomar Mountain. And there's a little section of trail, but from my memory, it's no more than 3 or 4 miles.
I think it's like 6 or 9 miles.
Really, yes.
Yeah.
It was so enjoyable that it seemed like half the distance, right? It's because all the rest is all on road, it's exposed. So I can't even imagine what Badwater really must be like. Um, Granted, my dreams of Badwater was way before kids. So I really give it up to Ray for putting the time and effort that takes to train for this race and still be a father, right? It's because it's a lot of work. And Ray, I'm really excited to get the chance to talk to you and learn more about you because I feel that as a local runner, because you live locally, Roseville, I believe. It's right. It's you've done some amazing things. I mean, you've run Badwater 12 times consecutively. You're going for your 13th finish. You run races in the Himalayas. You run races in um, uh, really cold weather. So it's you were scheduled to run Western States this weekend, right? It's you got drawn in the lottery this past December. Is that correct?
Uh, I signed up for it, but I wasn't chosen though. I wasn't
Okay.
chosen for this year. So I got to wait next year, keep my fingers crossed. So, you know, see if we get in.
Okay. So, um, for those of us that are not extremely familiar with Badwater, what time does Badwater starts?
It starts, depending on your wave, it either starts at 8, 10, and 11. So
And
depending on your speed.
what's the temperature when you start at 8 a.m.?
It's still in the hundreds. It's still up there. Because
So at
we're
8
still at
a.m.
the
it's 100
lower
degrees.
part of the valley.
Yeah. Okay. And in Badwater, well, Badwater is an amazing race, an amazing accomplishment. It is like one of the races that Ray Sanchez has done out of the 200 ultra finishes that he has. I mean, it's there's one single episode is not going to be enough to talk to Ray, right? But if we can focus on your next race, which is Badwater, how do you feel about it going into it? This is your 13th This is your 13th attempt, and hopefully it's going to be your 13th finish. Um, I know that you recently had shoulder surgery, so you haven't been able to train as much as you did before. Uh, how do you feel about it? Are you making any changes to your race plan? I know that you mentioned your nutrition. What have you changed?
I've been using Hammer Nutrition, and that's been helping me a lot with my dehydration because I tend to cramp out a lot. You know, I go through salt like crazy.
Yeah.
So that's been helping me a lot. And it's, you know, when you take too much salt, you know, depending on the person, like with me, if I have too much salt, it seems to turn my stomach a lot. So I always got to have like bread to, you know, to, how do you say it, to calm it down more so I won't turn. So that's been helping me a lot. And then I got my crew where I have Sergio Medina, who always been crewing me for the last couple of years. He pretty much got everything down packed for me. So it makes me more easier to be confident that he's going to be working on my nutrition where I don't have to worry about those things. Because it's just like when you do salt and sea, you have your crew there, you rely on them.
And
Okay.
talk a little bit about the whole crewing situation in Badwater, because it is pretty unique, I think, compared to a lot of other races, is it not?
Yes. So the only thing similar to it is salt and sea, which it's more funner. Badwater is just hard. And I got the easy part, running. People think crewing is easy, but crewing is actually hard. I mean, because they go in and out, so in the heat, they go back into the air, going in and out. Where me, I wouldn't be going in and out. I just want to stay either in the air condition or in the heat, one of the two.
Yeah, totally. And so like you're talking about basically like an RV following you, kind of like leapfrogging on the way and all that.
Yes, they'll go like I'll run like 5 miles and they'll leapfrog every 5 to 4 miles, depending, you know, how much water I go through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it just sounds like a pretty unique race logistically. And so what I am wondering is, you know, where we've had a lot of cancellations of other races, it's been due to the fact that, you know, there's aid stations that are fixed in location, there's people coming and going, all of that. But with Badwater, I mean, you're really kind of like a mobile aid station. You're kind of like in your own little self-contained world, it sounds like, going along the road there or the roads. So it sounds like that might help it in terms of just being able to pull the race off, you know, even during the pandemic.
Yeah, that helps a lot. And then you know, you're usually just around the people you be around all the time. So it just, you know, just following the rules.
Right.
And then there's only there's three stops where you just check in. You just check in and you just go on your way. You know, if you need to stop, if you have to stop there for like medical or supplies, you can get it there.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, have you had to do really specific hardcore heat training then, like saunas, other types of things like that, to just get to what you're going to experience out there?
Usually I run in the sauna, and I usually run a lot, you know, at home, you know, because in Sacramento, it's usually hot, but this year it hasn't even been hot. And then I haven't been able to run. So I just only had like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
These last 2 weeks, it wasn't even warm.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we got a little bit of a taste of it this week, but it's not quite. Yeah. It was a fairly mild, you know, spring, early summer, it seems like. So just in the last couple of weeks, maybe. Yeah. So, I mean, like you had the shoulder issue. I mean, were you able to do anything during that period, like while you're recovering, or any kind of a
No, since February, I got my surgery in February. Since February to now, just like 2 weeks ago, I just started just to run. I mean, I had to because I gained so much weight. And it's just eating, watching TV. I was watching Frozen over and over with the kids. And then, you know, I had to get off. It just made me feel better too. So I needed it.
Yeah, that's good. And so when you go there, I mean, are you seeing like the same people every year pretty much? Is this kind of like a
Uh,
typical type of,
you probably see about at least about what, about 20 to 30% the same people there.
mm-hmm.
And the rest are just newcomers, you know, or,
Yeah,
you know, you get people who ran it maybe like 5, 7 years ago, and they'll just come back to try one more time.
right.
Then you got like me and is it Danny Westgard? He ran it consecutively 13 times. He's one ahead of me.
Ah,
So I'll be chasing him for a long. I don't even think I'll catch him. He's like me. He just runs.
yeah.
So I'll just be right behind him until one of us falls apart.
Nice. And so what is the record for consecutive running?
13's the record.
So he's got the record basically.
He has the record, yeah.
He's going to be in it this year going for his 14th then?
Yeah, he's going for his 14th.
Okay. So in my mind, I'm thinking you're going to continue until he doesn't show up one year and then try to get one more than him. Is that right?
No, my goal is to get to 20.
Okay.
And then at the 20, I probably won't go back. If I do go back, if I want to try to get like an age record, if I'm still in shape or something. But besides that, just hit 20.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's an incredible achievement right there. I mean, I've read about people like Scott Jurek doing Badwater, you know, years and years ago, and just some of the descriptions he gives. I mean, and of course, as we all know, like or maybe a lot of us know, like he won Western States 7 times, I believe, and top of his class in terms of ultra running back in the early 2000s. And he had a terrible time with Badwater, but then ended up recovering, I guess. So you go through these huge swings, it sounds like, and it's a challenge for anybody, no matter how ability. So yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing what your body can do when it can recover. You're like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, well, my first year, I said you haven't sat up for 9 hours, and you know, I got rehydrated, and I was still doing like a 7:30 minute mile pace for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then that didn't last that long, but I had it for at least like 15, 20 miles.
Wow.
And then, you know, I casually dropped down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to be tempting when you're out on the road too, because you can speed it up a little bit. So all right, so that's great. I mean, we've talked a lot about Badwater, and that's kind of like front of mind because it's coming right up. But I also want to talk a little bit about like some of the older and original that you did. And you know, we sort of read through some of the information you gave us beforehand, and one of the things that I wanted to just touch on, because a lot of people may not know this, but you were a pretty accomplished boxer like back in the early 90s. So you started, it sounded like, doing some running early in your life, and you switched over to boxing for like 6-7 years and even went to the Olympic trials in 96. So you want to talk a little bit about that and like what got you interested in that, and what was your training like, and you know, how did that affect your future career as a runner, if in any way?
Well, I used to, back then I was a little bit younger. I think I started late. I started when I was 25 boxing.
Mm-hmm.
So I started at 25, and I did it for about 6 years until 96. I think 97 was my last year. And like my first year, I went to Golden Gloves. I won it. And then I either was runner up or I won it. So I won it 3 times. So every time I always made it to Golden Gloves. And then I went to the 96 Olympic trials and I lost my second bout. And then I thought I could just stay around, but once you lose, they just send you straight home.
You just wanted to hang around for the experience, right?
Yeah, I wanted to, you know, meet people, see, but you know, they just hop you on the plane and you send you right back. I was just on a big old plane all by myself going back. I'm like, wow. I said, if I would have known that, I would at least try my best to try not to lose.
Yeah. So I mean, and then after that, maybe you boxed for like another year or so, and then it sounded like you got more into like family life and that sort of thing, and that's sort of a transition out of the boxing.
Yeah, I after that I just focused on raising my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So I raised her, and then you know I was worked. Then the kids had grown up, had all this free time. My coworker Tom, he was like about, I think he was 57, 58 at the time. He's like 6'2", about 250 pounds. And he would just talk to me, all the time about running. And he said he ran 50 miles. I looked at him. And then he goes, yeah, I even run 100s. I looked at him and go, yeah, right. For like 2 years, he's convincing me. So one day he said, you want to, go run? I said, sure, I'll go run with them. I could do that. So we went for like a 10-mile run and couldn't keep up with them. And I was like, okay, he does do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine like how many of us, on this call or watching, when we first heard about ultras, just our jaws dropped to the floor. I mean, I know when I first got out to Auburn back in like 2014, and before I moved here, I came out like from the East Coast, came on vacation, was watching the finish of Western States, and heard some random people in the audience or in the stands saying like, oh yeah, we're going to go out for an easy 20-miler tomorrow. And for me, my maximum distance at that point was maybe 5 miles. And I was like, 20-miler, that sounds incredible. But then you sort of you get used to it, right? And then every distance seems like, oh, I can do that. So you went out on the 10-miler and it was tough.
Yeah, 10 mile. I ran with him for a while, and then I did the first ever win was 26, and I was at CIM. So that 2 or 3 months later, I signed up for the CIM, and I finished that. And then I found out about 50Ks and stuff. So I was doing a lot of races in the Bay Area. Like every weekend, I'll just go out to the Bay Area and just run all the PC trail races they had back then.
Yeah. So you didn't think like, maybe I'll try like a half marathon first or something like that. You're just going all in, right?
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, just the views you get, the people you meet. I mean, it's just like, there's times where I stop, I'm like, didn't know what's going on. And a runner would just come by, hey, you all right? Just help me out and get me back on my feet, and I'll just go.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, so in those first trail races, like, I don't know, I've talked to a few of us on the call and out on the trails and just randomly talking about their first entry into trail racing. And a lot of times I've heard like, I had no idea what I was doing. Like I was just out there. I didn't know when to eat, drink, do anything. Didn't know what clothes to wear. Like, how did you go into it? And like, what did you learn over those months doing all those races out there? Did you change? Like, did you see yourself changing over that period of time?
I didn't really start changing until I did Tahoe 100. Because I did AR50, just legs not to take. I learned on that one not to take off so fast because I did the first 26 miles under 4 hours, and my legs just tighten up. And that was my first 50. And then, I learned that no matter how fit you are, you just can't move once your legs tighten up. So, I practically crawl and finish that one. And then Tahoe, I didn't know nothing about salt. This guy, he gave me some S caps at the time, but I didn't take it because I didn't know what it was. He just said, oh, you take these like one every hour. And I was like, oh, no, let's put away. So then after I was doing great, after mile 50, that's when I started cramping up. And I was like, oh, man, I didn't know. They were telling me I get to ACH, oh, get some salt and all that. And got back on my feet. I ended up finishing it.
Yep. So that was in the same year that you did a bunch of 50Ks, consecutive weekends, you did AR50, and then you went right to TRT, like the same year. Is that right?
Yeah, same year.
Yeah. So we've talked to multiple people over the last few weeks, and several of them have had like a pretty steep ramp, but that might be one of the steeper ones I'm thinking. So like how, and I mean, it's fine, obviously, like you did it and you had a great time at TRT. What did your body feel like? Like, and also like mentally, like, were you recovering? Like, how did you recover? How did you feel throughout all that?
At the finish net, I knew I could do anything. Because that was a difficult race. It wasn't easy. So I chose, I'm different. Most people choose an easy race. I wanted a hard race. Because if I knew if I could accomplish that, then I could accomplish anything.
Right.
So I did that and I accomplished that. And I think, I don't know, I think less than a month later, I signed up for another 100.
Yeah.
I did Headlands or something like that.
Right.
In the Bay Area. And I did that and I did pretty good in that one too. I finished.
Yeah, because I was looking at, your results. I mean, if you go on Ray's Ultra sign up, over 200 races finished, as Paula mentioned in the beginning. And the thing that really strikes me is the number of consecutive races on weekends, or maybe there's a 2-week break, but not a lot. And so you're doing like major numbers of races during the year. I thought I made a note here that, yeah, so like the weekend after TRT 100, your first 100, you ran a 50K. Is that right?
I think I did, because for me, the way to recover is like, well, everyone's different. Everyone's body's different. But for me, as long as I'm out there running within 24 hours, I'll recover a lot faster. And then it just like, if you notice on my results, I could do 100 one week, but then the next week, my next 100 is even faster. Because you tend to loosen up more and you just, know more.
Yep. And so just kind of like keeping yourself moving, just that sounds like the most important thing for you.
Yeah, because it was hard because I was working a lot, and it's just to get time in. I don't know how people do it, but get the time in to train.
Right.
Like I'd be looking on Facebook and I see these people doing like a 20-mile run. I'm like, oh, I wish I could go. And stuff. I'm like, if I could squeeze in 15.
Yeah, for sure. I think, do we have Pablo back online here?
Hey guys, so yes, I am back. I apologize for the delay. Thank you, Greg, for carrying the torch, so to speak. But I've been listening, and really, it's amazing to say that you have a hard time getting 20 miles in just because your available time. Is that usually how it goes, or how it has been for the past few years? Do you're like going into this 135-mile races? Are your long runs only 15 miles or 20 miles, and then you're using other 100-milers as a stepping stone for your faster 100 miles?
Before I used to just use races to my first 3 years. I was just using races to train because I didn't have no time. Now it's just like whatever I can just get in, because now I have 2 little kids, and it's just family. You know how that is. Family is just trying to get away, to get some miles in. So it's definitely hard.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard thing. So I applaud your effort and your dedication. And I'd be extremely excited for you in 2 weeks for Badwater. I was really excited to see that they got their permits approved and they're good to go. It's that being said, Badwater is usually a limited field for such a difficult race, and you have to petition to get in. You have to, someone like yourself with such a history. It's has a little bit of a easier time than someone that is brand new. But even then, I believe that there's only 60 runners expected to start, and I'm sure that they will be quickly apart, right?
Oh yeah, they spread apart quick. Like in the first, I say 10 miles, you just see a big old line of lights. It's just a big old gap.
Okay. Do you think that it gets easier at night just because the cooler temperature, or by the time the night comes, you're so tired and so depleted from the heat that it's just as bad as the day?
Um, it just depends how well you're prepared for the race. I mean, it's just like I could go do a marathon usually easy, but if I'm not prepared for it, then it's going to be a difficult marathon for me.
Yeah.
And seeing what's so hard about Badwater is the heat. It's there all the time, even though in the nighttime or in the daytime, it's just constantly there. And then there's like when you go through Devil's Cornfield, you go through there, you got the hot, it's like a blow dryer just blowing on you. You got the hot wind just in the heat just blowing on you, which dries you real quick instantly. And that one of the section always gave me problems because I always get dehydrated in that one of the section. And it's just like, like 1 year I was almost to a stovepipe. I was like maybe not even 4 miles away, and I just told my crew to go up ahead that I'll see them there. And I thought I had plenty of water, with me, and that didn't last me, and I got dehydrated in that one little 4 mile section.
Well, it's incredible to hear that you lost 12 pounds at the beginning of your first race. I mean, 12 pounds, and I know you personally, Ray. You're not really a big guy, right? So I gotta say that you're probably weighing about 160 at the most,
Yeah,
155. So 12 pounds is just under 10% of your full weight, and that's at the beginning of such a big race, right? But moving on from the Badwater subject, you've done three 200-mile races. You've done Bigfoot and Tahoe 200 twice. Um, is there a comparison to these 135-mile races to these 200s, or would you say that 200s kind of live in their own world just because of distance?
it's not distance; it's just different. I mean, you got road, and the I mean, Tahoe. I mean, it's a difficult race, but then then there's Bigfoot, which is an amazing race. I mean, you're my problem when I run Bigfoot is just trying to keep my eye on the trail because you're too busy looking around at this. Every view. I did it twice already. Every time you go by there, it's just a different view, different look. Looking at the mountains and stuff, and then you're running, you're hearing waterfalls, and you're like, oh, where's that coming from? And you go off course just to go see it. I mean, it just keeps you occupied, and you don't realize how many miles you've already done. I mean, it's a difficult race and stuff. It's challenging too because you're in Bigfoot. You're jumping from border to border. I mean, you're practically just these big old borders. I don't know where she came up with the design of this race, but you're just jumping from one to another just to get through. And then there's
Yeah,
some where you're on a ridge and you look down and it's just straight down.
yeah. Yeah, so Ray is referring to Candace, who is a race director for Tahoe 200 and Bigfoot 200, and she will also be running Badwater. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. She got in this year. She's in
Yeah,
there.
so that's great. It's I follow Candace. I'm a big fan of her training protocol and procedures. So I think she's gonna do great. I'm really excited for all you 60 guys. I mean, it's such a dedication. It takes so long to get into the race, and it's such a big commitment that it is great to hear that the permits were approved. Um, when it comes to your nutrition, because this is something that you've been working on, is the nutrition that you use for the 200-mile races the same that you use for something like Badwater?
Um, I used I've been switching off and on because I could never get it right. And I used Hammer Nutrition a long time ago, and which I did good. Which I knocked off like what 8 hours off my 100-mile time, and I think I did I think it was Headland 100 or something like that. I did. I used it. Then they had it one time when I did Run in the Hood, 100-mile run. They had it one in
Hmm.
one, and they were using Hammer, and I used that, and it's quite good. But you always experience things. I switch back and forth. So I went back to Hammer, and it's been working with me a lot. Especially, I've been using the recovery light, which it it, it, uh, it kind of cures my appetite. Where before, where I was just using the regular nutrition, whatever nutrition I was using at the time, where I just freaking gorged after eating. And then you just, you always have the weight right there. Your love handles just staying right there. And, instead of going to like, healing my muscles and stuff and everything, that's been helping me a lot. And
Yeah.
I just feel better and stronger.
Yeah. So the hood race in Oregon that you're referring to is one that you won, right? And you ran 100 miles in just under 17 hours.
Yeah.
Um, okay, that's great, and it's great that you mentioned about that you talk about Hammer. I used hammer in my early years of triathlon, and I learned that hammer has a great number of products. One of them, my biggest, I was a big fan of the hammer perpetuum. Hammer
Yeah.
perpetuum, mostly because it has a high concentration of protein and carbohydrates. So it's by taking hammer perpetuum, it's a slow release of energy as opposed to just fine sugars that you usually find in the more sugary products, which, yeah, it gives you a boost of energy, but it's short-lived, right?
If
It's
you take it like you're posting, like, you know, that's where, because when you run Badwater, you know, a lot of time you get delirious, you know, you're not keeping track of it. That's where your crew comes important doing it, you know, keeping you on it. But when you take it, it's like when I was doing it in 2015, and I end up finishing good, you know, because I was on my nutrition and stuff. And then, you know, constant. I was just, I didn't have a low at all. And I did good. So I just been keeping up on that, and that's been helping me a lot.
That's great. Yeah, I feel like a big part of nutrition, people focus about nutrition, about what they do during the run, but we tend to forget about what comes after the run. So if we fuel ourselves really well during the run, um, we basically have a better end of the run, a better experience. For me, it was really hard to learn, mostly because it was like sometimes I could not justify taking 200 or 300 calories on a 2 hour run, but then I have a really horrible afternoon. Uh, where I learned that if I do fuel myself really well during the run, then the rest of my day just goes much better. I don't get sleepy, I don't get cranky, I don't have a headache, I'm a lot more hydrated. And this is during training, right? During racing, you can take things a little bit slower after the race, especially if it's such a big race as Badwater, right? We don't expect you to jump to 100, but then again, we're talking to Ray Sanchez, who's probably going to jump to another 100 the following weekend if he could, right? It's
Yeah.
it's so for those of us that nutrition comes mostly on a day-to-day basis. Is not only during the run, but is how am I feeling for the next day? Because if you have a horrible afternoon after a long run, you're less likely to run the following day if you just wake up all soggy and in pain, and you know it's just a natural response to pain. Um, Rick, looks like you're muted, so just FYI. So, moving on from the racing yourself, I want to talk a little bit about your race directing experience. You are a local race director here in Auburn. You had a great relationship, and you still continue to have a great relationship with Martin Sengel, who is a key component to our community. I feel like if we lose one of these key individuals, it's like a chess game. The whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
Um, it's so. How do you get into race directing? What is your experience with the early race directing of this year before COVID? You had to cancel one of your events because of COVID. So if you can tell us a little bit about that, would be great.
Oh man, I didn't realize. You know, I always wanted to do it for years. Wanted to be a race director, but then now after doing it, it's like, wow, I don't know how you do it. It's a lot of freaking work. I mean,
It's a
it's
lot
not
of
as
work.
easy. And
It's a
just
lot of work.
waiting for the permits is just waiting, and you know, just getting everything set up and stuff.
Yeah, I have to say, Ray, at least you kind of jumped into, or you joined in the resurrection community in a really tough time, just because COVID has not made things easier for anybody. and most definitely has not made it easier for the race directors. Not only we have to deal with the permits, but once we get the permits, we have to deal with the runner's experience and the runner's safety, which is a whole another ball game, right? It's
Yeah, that's. I don't want to get into that. That's just, that's stressful. Give me gray hairs. Just thinking
yes,
about that.
I know. I didn't have any gray hairs before I was, before I was a race director. It's now they're all over the place. So, um, so that being said, are you looking forward to putting on a next race? And if so, what is the next race that you will be putting on?
I got to fill out the permits. Waiting for the permits. I'm gonna do a Mad Murphy beer run. I mean,
Oh,
it's a
okay.
yeah. I've been in Colombia up there. Just a little loop around there. It's an 11-mile loop. I'll be
And when
doing
would
that.
that be scheduled? If
So I'm looking into September.
September, okay?
Yeah,
Uh,
either the beginning of September or at the end of September.
for those of you watching and listening, sounds like we got a new race coming into town in a local area in Coloma, about 11 miles, which is fairly attainable for all of us, even including me. That it's 11 miles is a double digits. I haven't done double digits in a long time.
Yeah.
It's so I'll be looking forward to that. I'm gonna start tapering now. That's my excuse.
A long
Yes, yes, a long taper. You know, I've been tapering for 3 years.
Time
Mhm.
to lay it on the line.
Yes. Uh, yes. Um,
It's great.
so I I know that this is talking to Ray is such a big deal just because Ray has so much experience, and one of the races that I'm not sure if you guys touched on while I was gone, but I want you to share with us your experience with I believe is Arrowhead 135.
Oh
Right?
man, I
Yeah,
hate
right.
I hate freaking cold.
Yeah.
When it's 100 degrees, I'm wearing a jacket. My coworkers always tease me. You know, they make me feel weird. I gotta take it off sometimes. But I
so,
hate cold.
so for those of us out there that are not familiar with Arrowhead 135, can you tell us what it is?
It starts in International Falls in Minnesota, and it goes all the way up to I think it's called Tower up there. It's 135 miles. It's all snowmobile trail. I don't know what the elevation's on that, but there's some elevation on it. Not very much, but there's some on it. You're going up in hill. Uh, I did it a couple of years, I think 3 years, no, 2 years, self-supported, or you could do it where you could stop at the 3A station. So you could choose either way. You can
Okay.
either run it, ski it, or bike it. So they have three divisions. You choose which one you want done. So everybody always do the running.
And this is what time of the year?
It's in the last week of January.
In
In,
Minnesota.
Mi- in
Yeah,
Minnesota. Yes,
and
it's like no,
average
like
average
not even
temp.
people that live in Minnesota wants to be Minnesota in January.
Uh,
You
yeah,
know.
because average temp like a start is like -4, and I think the record's -40.
Okay. Yes. Uh, for those of you, one little fun fact is that I believe it's negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit. You can shatter your teeth. It's yeah, it's I know it's very odd how I know that, but it's true. It's
Yeah.
another fun fact about negative 40 degrees is that negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit is also negative 40 degrees Celsius. It's a one temperature in which Celsius and Fahrenheit e- equate.
Right.
It's which people always said, oh well, Fahrenheit is different temperature than Celsius. Not negative 40. Negative 40 is just as bad in Celsius as Fahrenheit. It's just cool. Wow,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
As a former
And
weather, I can attest to that cold temperature. It's not pleasant.
yeah, And right before we go into our Q&A section, because I know we're running out of time, it's you did a big race in the Himalayas, right?
Yes, I did a race up there, and
Yeah, yeah. So what was the highest altitude that that race went up to?
I think it was 18 or 17.5
Wow, that's 17,500.
feet.
It's
Yes,
and what was the distance of the race?
135.
So it's 135 miles and it goes over 17,000 feet, right? So for those of you, yes, I know broken arrow is really difficult. It's but putting things into perspective, this is 135 miles and it goes over a 17,000 feet pass. Wow, that's incredible.
But
So
you'll be happy to hit the heat maybe in a couple weeks instead, huh?
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But my key is just try to finish it.
Yeah.
that's great. That's great. So, Mike, I know that you are tuning in the background, and I know that you have a couple questions from the audience. So if you want to go ahead and go forward.
Yeah, for sure. We have Jesse Ellis actually has joined via Zoom. He's been on Facebook Live for weeks now. Welcome, Jesse from Arizona. And let me get his mute here, or muted unless someone get to it before I can. Okay, Jesse, we can hear you now.
Hello.
Hi,
Again.
Go
Hey,
ahead,
what's
Jesse.
up, Ray?
how you doing?
I gave you my question. I'm so used to giving you, and you remember. I think you answered actually some of what I was asking. I want to know your opinion on nutrition and recovery, and I feel like you answered a lot of that. I think when I talked to you a long time ago, Ray, you don't you use those leg compression things?
Yes, I use those to run in. I use those for training. But I use the compression socks. You mean?
No,
Sock.
don't you use the like? I don't have them obviously. They're like $1,000. The little leg things you put your legs in.
Yeah, I use those when I do US cryo. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think you answered everything about nutrition. That was my primary question, I believe.
I think, you know what?
I don't recall.
I think with nutrition, I find that I probably am lousy at nutrition. I think you can do 100 and get away with it in a nice weather 100 and get away with lousy nutrition. But I don't think you can get away with lousy nutrition on 135s and 200s. I think it's a different story.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Ray?
I have problems even on 50 miles. It just depends how you keep up your nutrition. I mean, if you're on it, then you know, because what works for me might not work for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like everyone looks at when they do a race, they do poorly, and they look at it miserable. But I look at it as a learning experience. What did I learn from it? So I won't do it next time when I run the race, and so I won't end up in a hospital again. So that's what I end up looking at.
A worthy goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a worthy goal.
They knew me in there. They used me as guinea pig. Like, oh man, there's times where my calves were just coming out. And like I was freaking out. I mean, you can't stop it. It just their muscles come sticking out. It's like weird.
So Ray, touching, I'm gonna jump in, Mike. So I apologize here, but I'm gonna jump in and ask you one question when it comes to, when you mentioned going to the hospital. How does your wife feels about you going back to Badwater so many times, even after she sees you in a really rough spots?
Since I met her, she only saw me, I think twice go to the hospital. And then I promised her ever since then that I'll never go to the hospital again. So I don't push myself like I used to. Before I would just run out crazy. I'll just go, just fast as I can nonstop. Now I'm more conservative where I just, making sure I don't end up in the hospital. So I've been knock on wood, I haven't ended up in the hospital since then. But before I was like, I was in there like every 3 weeks because I do so many races back to back, but so hard where my body is not even recover.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike. I apologize for.
No, that's crazy. That's just like, yeah, that's when you know when you're pushing your body when you're in the hospital. You know, you're just, that's rough. We got Adam here on Facebook Live. He's been a regular on all of our interviews these days. You had a couple questions earlier, Adam, about ultras.
Yeah. Hey, Ray. Nice to meet you.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
I live up here in Auburn. I'm not at the aid station right now, but I'm usually there on Thursdays. And but my question I have two questions for you, and they're both similar, and that's why. Like what drives you? What is your why power? Like how do you get through the low moments of, what's the why? And then number two is why Badwater as your, 20x goal race?
It's a challenge I want to do, something I want to accomplish. I mean, because I want to get a better time. I know I'm capable of getting like 24 hours, which I haven't hit. I think my best time was like 27 hours, something like that, which, I would tend to get. I won't be able to get it this year, but maybe next year I'll get 24. Try to get there close to it as possible I can. That's my goal. Usually I just set my mind to something. That was one. Badwater was my one that when I had to get the application, I wasn't qualified. I said, well, I'm gonna get qualified. And I remember always on the application, I used to say, my goal is to do 10. And then I kept jumping up to 20. Yeah, right under there. When why? Actually, why would you want to do it? And then I'm just shooting for 20. I just want to get there and stop.
And why do you put yourself through this at all?
Well, it's not bad or torture. I mean, it's fun. It's just meeting people there. Just the community. You every year it's like, oh, you find out about a new race. You're like, oh wow, I want to do that race. I've never heard about that race. Where's this at? It's like when I first did Badwater, I never knew about Arrowhead, and I'd done Arrowhead, and I found out that one. Then I found out about the World Cup, where it was Brazil, Arrowhead, it was Badwater, and it was Europe. And you had to do it all in 1 year. And I accomplished that, and I was the first and only one to accomplish all 4 in 1 year.
Jeez. So you just find these crazy challenges and just get self-determined to make them happen, realize them.
Yeah, that. I mean, you also get to travel. You go places where you've never been. I mean, there's times like, I go out and run around Folsom Lake. I go there a lot, but it's always a different scene, a different view, always something different you get to see. It's never the same thing, boring. Like, you go on a road, you just see the same thing over and over, just different cars. But it's always, trees, different, seasons, different color when it's fall or when it's raining. Long as it's not raining when you start. But once you go and it rains, who cares? But then you also get the runner high where, there's times where I'll run and then I'll just say, wow, I just did 25 miles. I didn't even feel like it. And then there's times where like that last mile, it just seems forever. It's like, man, it's like 10 miles. But overall, I mean, it's great.
Awesome. I feel you. I run, especially now with COVID, out my front door. I got the American River Canyon kind of in my backyard. And so I'm quite often running the same trail, at least to get places, but I never get bored. Different view. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. Just living life.
That's great.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's it. We have one on Facebook Live. We're streaming there. There's a couple more questions about Badwater. JT Becker wanted to know about what's the total amount of weight you're allowed to lose, and is that a percentage of your body weight? How does that go?
They usually go by 10%, and usually the doctors, if you're under that 10%, they'll pull you out.
Seems like that could happen pretty quick. Like you mentioned earlier, you lost how much weight within the first section,
You could lose it like within, I say 7 miles, you could lose it. It just depends if you're running too fast or if you are keeping up on your fluids or your salt, because if you're not keeping on your salt, you're not going to retain the water. I mean, anything can happen within a matter of seconds there. It's just like Arrowhead. I mean, it's just, you got to keep drinking, but you don't want to drink because the water's so freaking cold that it feels like your chest is going to collapse. You know, span, and you don't want to drink, so you don't drink. Because, you know, time you take your glove off, time you grab that, you already got frostbite in your hands. Then you're sitting there with your hands in the air trying to, you know, get them thaw out.
That sounds miserable. I think a cold race to me is the worst. Sounds like the biggest challenge. I mean, maybe I'm a fair weather runner, but a cold race sounds just
whole new set of challenges out there.
Yeah, I have a Superior in September, but it's supposed to be hot and muggy, so nothing like January. The last question was actually mine, and I had a question. I wanted to know more about the World Cup. And I mean, 4 130-mile, 35-mile races in 1 year, that's pretty epic to bite off. What was the spacing between those races?
Brazil was in January. It's in the middle of January. A week later was Arrowhead. Then you had Badwater. It's in July, and then after Badwater, I think it was pretty sure it was September or October was Europe, and I did Europe.
One quick note for those of you that are not 100% familiar with the weather in South America in January, but it's summer. It's full summer in January in Brazil. So Ray, you went from summer 135-mile race in January to the following weekend extreme winter weather in Minnesota. So that's pretty wild, I have to say. Yes.
And then I didn't even get to tell you about Brazil. Brazil is it's an awesome race too. It's over 30,000 feet of elevation change on that one. And then you got the heat and the humidity, like you said. Like one moment, you know, one time I ran it, and it was hot. The next thing you know, it was flooded. It just rained. You know, you're up there just slipping, sliding, trying to get up the hill.
So is that one mostly a trail race? Is there sections of trail?
It's trail, and there's some road. You go through like little towns to the trail.
Yeah.
The majority of it's trail.
Combination of both. Okay. Yeah. So Greg, do you have any questions left?
I think we're good, and I can hear the party's really jacking up down there at the aid station. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we covered some great stuff tonight, and yeah, certainly got you know, just your perseverance, Ray, and I know all of us on the call are wishing you the best at Badwater for your 13 attempts.
Thank you.
Finish. That's going to be a great time, and
Yeah. So Ray and Greg, I think it will be great if we can check in with Ray after Badwater, and maybe we can get an update on how the race went. What was your experience? So I hope that we get a chance to talk to you, Ray, again and cover.
Okay, that'd be great.
Round. Yes. It's
getting ready for that.
Yeah. No. So let's definitely stay in touch. Ray, best of luck at Badwater. I am looking forward to watching you guys run. It's you don't want me anywhere near that right now. Because I went for 3 miles in 98-degree weather, and I think I lost 17 pounds. It's so yes, no. So once again, no. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us. I know that you have a very busy times with your family. Please say hi to your wife for me, because I know we go back a few years. We haven't seen each other in years, but you know, we're all busy with families and running and life. But I'll be looking forward to your run up in Coloma. It's you know, 11 miles is within my limits right now.
It's 11-mile. It's a 11-mile loop, so I'll be doing 11, 22, and 33.
Okay, perfect. Yes, one loop is enough for me right now.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks everybody for joining another episode, the Mile 99 interview, and we'll see you again soon.